Hey Hunter, how's it going?
Hey Dylan, what's up, man?
Everything's been great in the DylanBurnsTV world. I have more fans than ever. Don't worry about it.
Hey man, I'm really excited to have you on because I'm used to you being a moderator, and usually you boss me around, but now I get a chance to boss you around.
Wow, I'm I'm excited. I'm
I'm
excited.
really, yeah.
Okay? Just treat me like Mike and it'll be fine.
Yeah, right.
Can I ask you a
Dude,
question
I
about that before
I wouldn't
anything
do that to
else?
my
Can I ask you one question before we talk about Afghanistan about that conversation? Just one?
yes, I don't care. What's up?
Okay. Did you hear him when you made the joke about him saying um when you said, "Oh, I don't want you to come over to my place, you might punch a couch," and then he said, "I might punch something."
Yeah.
What the fuck was that? Was he
It sounded you know what? The thing is when you're in the debate, you know how it is when you like you miss shit like that sometimes. But at the same time I was like I didn't want to get to cuz I couldn't tell if he meant it that way or not.
Mhm.
I don't know.
You don't know. It's impossible. But I mean, it didn't
That's the
sound good. That's all I'm gonna say. It didn't sound good.
Yeah, that's the point. Hiding behind the memes. That seems to be the theme of today's episode. But yeah, man, I appreciate you coming on. I this probably won't be that long of a conversation. Just for a little preface here, I'm very woefully uneducated when it comes to foreign affairs. So, do you want to give a little bit of a rundown for my audience here on like I know you do stuff with foreign policy, correct?
Yeah, I don't call myself a foreign policy expert, but I
Okay.
have advised two congressional campaigns. I studied international relations, and I'm finishing my degree at the University of Maryland. And I currently work not as in a foreign policy capacity, but I do work in a form under the former ambassador of Romania, which I do hope after reading this book and hopefully getting to talk to him more that I get to learn more about his experience about foreign policy. And I've tried to do some independent research a lot myself, so I care deeply about foreign policy and foreign policy issues.
Okay. Very cool. All right, cool. Well, let's just jump right into it. I'm just going to ask a couple questions, and that'll probably be it. I did get one from a chatter as well that we'll probably get into. The first one is like, just generally speaking, what I know that Biden took the troops out of Afghanistan, and now what's escalating here? What's happening, and like, what could Biden have done differently?
So when it comes to what Biden could have done differently, first I'll get to that after like saying the situation. So Trump made an agreement with the Taliban around 2018, 2019, after a lot of negotiations about a withdrawal from Afghanistan. This was a reversal of his early term policy of escalating violence against the Taliban, increasing drone strikes to huge proportions, and of course, famously dropping the Moab, the mother of all bombs. Uh,
Okay.
some people argue that that was a negotiation tactic, but if it was, it did not work well in negotiations since the Taliban basically conceded nothing and didn't even agree to a ceasefire. They just agreed to negotiate a ceasefire later. They did, but the Taliban basically did that so they could not have to sign a ceasefire and do exactly what we just saw happen, right?
Okay.
So the negotiations occur, and eventually we agree to leave in May. Now, the May deadline was a little concerning to me for a few reasons. Number one, I was concerned about the if we would be able to do all the processes correctly to take all the refugees out in an orderly time, if we had passed legislation or gone through the proper processes to make sure that everybody who could be at risk in Afghanistan who assisted us to get them out of the country, because I believe that anybody who assisted us, and if we can take as many refugees as possible, we should be doing that. That was my first concern. My second concern is that I do think there are things that the Biden administration could have done to increase the confidence of the ANA forces, or at least give them a fighting chance, which not only would have made the withdrawal better if they had a more fighting chance and more will to live, and then we wouldn't see the situation we have right now, but it also could have given them a more legitimate chance at resisting. And even if the Taliban do take over, it could mean there would be maybe more resistance in general, or they would have to concede more, or the odds of them negotiating, even from a position of power, would have been more likely. This complete and utter takeover of most of the country, even if there is some resistance now in the Panjshir region, would not have been so total and complete. Some of these things that I think should have been done is more grounded negotiations about where our trade when it comes to arms was going to happen, and updated military equipment, since there's been equipment problems within the military. seeing if it would be possible to do some quick moves on corruption. Now, these quick moves would not have had an immediate impact when it comes to corruption in the military, but have been very important to giving people a will to fight, since corruption is one of the main problems people have with the ANA government, and it could have been a good will booster. I say like will to fight. And another thing I was not happy with, and this is one of the big concerns of a lot of people who were looking at the situation and actually like listening to the people on the ground, is that the Air Force did not have the capability to replace spare parts. They did not have the parts necessary to maintain their Air Force, and they did not have the expertise in order to repair it. So even if they had the parts, they didn't have the people in order to rebuild those, like to repair like their Air Force. And without air power, which is one of the main advantages the ANA had in the last 20 years over the Taliban, and that was because we assisted them directly with the American Air Force, one of the most effective air forces in the world. Without those skills and tools necessary, they had a huge advantage that they were supposed to have completely almost out of their arsenal. And so I would have said either longer term agreements for military contractors on repairing those vehicles and making sure they had the equipment necessary. People could tell me it's expensive, and I'll bite the bullet on that. I don't think it would have been that expensive, but I think it would have been totally morally justifiable and would have made our withdrawal go a lot better. And those are a lot of the problems with the withdrawal. Those are just a few. I could talk about what went wrong with the Afghanistan war more broadly, but that's a bunch of woulda, shoulda, coulda. Even what I'm talking about now is woulda, shoulda, coulda. Now all we can really do is do everything possible to accept as many refugees as we can.
Okay, so that actually knocks out two birds with one stone right there, because the chatter question, if I'm not mistaken, from the donation here from Maze was, do you think the U.S. should accept Afghan refugees?
I think we should accept, and I've been questioned about this by like Rob Noor and others, like, oh, Dylan, is this really your position? And I've said I 100% unequivocally say that we should accept as many Afghan refugees as physically possible.
Okay. And then when it comes to the thing with Biden, because people know.
Actually, on that, can I read you something quick?
Sure, please do.
Okay, 1 second. This actually is really it's some testimony from an Afghan pilot who served in the ANA, and they served for 15 years in the ANA, and they served very well in the ANA, and they were very brave. And they talk about this because there's this idea that like all the ANA were just like cowards or complete like fools or stuff like that. And I want to make sure that people like understand that these were actually like brave individuals. Many of them were not just there for a paycheck, but were there to change the future of their country. So this is an interview from a pilot in the ANA. Let me just bring this up on screen. Right now I have some footage of the Taliban in the presidential office.
Would it be easier? Do you want to come on video here?
Oh, sure. I can come on. I can turn on my camera if you want. But
Okay.
let me read this quick. This is from an Afghan pilot. Anything you want the American public to know? And they responded, many Afghan soldiers died bravely. I've been fighting for over 15 years. We did not all just give up and quit. Yes, some did. Once the Americans left, we weren't ready to start doing all the logistics. The logistics, the maintenance, and the corruption really hurt us. I know the people in the U.S. are upset we didn't fight longer. But we've been fighting for decades, and some of us even longer. They've been fighting ever since the Soviet invasion of Afghanistan. When the U.S. left, it really affected morale, especially how quickly it happened. We woke up one day, then Bagram was gone. Everyone got scared. It got out of control. I'm mad at many of the senior leaders who lined their pockets and simply vanished from the country. However, the thousands of Afghan officers were not responsible for that. We were simply doing the best we could. There are a lot of Afghans who trusted the United States, not just translators, not just civil society activists, but also Afghan soldiers. We loved fighting alongside Americans. Please don't leave us behind. Please, we will be great Americans.
Wow. That's pretty compelling right there too.
It's extremely compelling. It's actually like it's legitimately hard for me to read. When this all went down, it was difficult for me to sleep. The thing that really killed me was seeing people fall from the planes as they clinged onto the wheels because they were so scared of getting caught by the Taliban.
So what should have been done? Should the troops have stayed there? Was it a mistake for Biden to take them out?
This is the difficult question, because this is where I have to bite a few bullets that make people uncomfortable, but I'm perfectly willing to do it. There was no way we were going to stay in Afghanistan once the withdrawal started. And I do think that a withdrawal should have happened. I can disagree with how it happened, but once it started, it was done. There's not Biden reversing that withdrawal would have been damaging in a lot of ways. Number one, it would have really hurt our ability to negotiate with the Taliban going forward. That's the first thing.
Okay.
And it would have hurt which might be something we have to do in the future, even if we got more leverage. That's the first thing. The second thing is, if we didn't do the withdrawal is very politically popular. Before the withdrawal and all the mistakes that have gone on, and everybody's seen how terrible it is, how much coverage has gotten, it was 66 to 70% polling in favor of the withdrawal. And Biden, politically, reversing that would have been terrible for the midterms, even though I'm just saying political calculus. I'm not saying the moral. This is completely separate from the morality of the decision. He was not going to reverse it for that reason. It's a popular move to do, and reversing it, him biting the bullet and saying, never mind, we're going to reverse this, would have been extremely unpopular and hurt him so much politically. And it probably would have just kicked the ball to the next administration to just do it now, with even possibly more chaos, because of how little people would trust an American withdrawal at that time. And our troops could have been in more danger because, you just negotiated another withdrawal? Well, last time you said that, so we're just going to keep attacking your soldiers. And so it was politically unviable, would have hurt ability to negotiate with the Taliban. And think about how this would have made the ANA feel if we did stay. It would have already weakened our capacity to stay in the country, because they would have been like, look at these Americans flip-flopping, whether they're going to stay with us or leave, and then we need to fight on our own. So do they not actually think we could fight on our own? It would have smashed their confidence and their trust in the Americans anyway. So there were so many reasons why it was announced. It wasn't, you can't reverse it. And I also do believe that that I want to withdraw, even if I think it should have been done completely differently. So I'm still in support of withdrawal, even if I think this one was botched terribly.
Okay. So the withdrawal ultimately would have been the good move, but so how, like,
it would be like
in your humble
it'd be like if
opinion,
I said I want healthcare, I want universal healthcare, and then someone said, okay, I'll give every American a Band-Aid. Like, I am in favor of universal healthcare, but I think we could have gone about it a much different way.
So what would have been the better way to go about this? And I'm just curious also, like, how much of this is directly Biden's doing, or is this because I only am asking that because it's pretty public that I voted for Biden, being a former Trump voter in 2016. So anytime Biden gets criticism, I get chatters that are like, ha, how do you like them apples, Hunter, or whatever. So
the thing that's here is Trump voters have no room to speak here, but Biden voters also need to bite the bullet that Biden messed up too. It's the first thing is Trump built a very shaky foundation for withdrawal. A withdrawal under Trump would have been as bad, if not worse. Number one, you can look at the pullout from northeastern Syria. His pullout from northeastern Syria was absolutely botched. It was god-awful. It was announced in the middle of the night. The allies in northeastern Syria had no time to prepare. It was so bad that our troops had many close calls where they almost gotten engaged with Turkish soldiers. And there was also instances where Kurdish politicians from northeastern Syria were not able to escape in time, were pulled out of cars and killed. It was a disaster. And it is not even a withdrawal I would support. I wouldn't have supported that withdrawal. So when you have that being the one big example that we saw Trump of doing a withdrawal, it's very hard for me to imagine that the commander-in-chief, the former commander-in-chief we're talking about, would have done something differently or more effectively in Afghanistan. I find that very hard to believe. And he built a shaky foundation. I mean, when you say, let's do this withdrawal and sign this agreement, and in this agreement, we can negotiate later for a ceasefire, and this deal or sign agrees that you guys will negotiate later in Doha and other locations for a ceasefire, you're kicking the can down the road. You're not addressing the ceasefire issue. I believe a ceasefire should have been a prerequisite for any agreement with the Taliban. Just period. Number one, stop the violence, and to make these types of withdrawals more orderly. I think that was a big mistake for Trump to cave on that. Definitely, as he said, oh, we're going to, basically the argument for Trump in Afghanistan was, well, he bombed them, he escalated bombing in the first 2 years and dropped the Moab because he was just increasing his leverage power, and then he can't even get a ceasefire. I just find that so preposterous. Now, when it goes to Biden, that's a shaky foundation. And it is true that it's hard to build a good house off of a shaky foundation, but then Biden just built a shaky house. He was in office for 7 months. He was able just barely to basically extend the withdrawal, and it would have been harder for him to continue to extend it because originally it would have been in May. And that's why thinking about this in May, considering how little we were prepared for this, later in August, I think that suggests to me it could have been a lot worse. But that extension was not enough, and that's not even me saying if he was going to be able to do enough. But there was no fast tracking done for these Afghan refugees. That fast tracking would have been super important to me. Now, when it comes to the intelligence failures, I don't think I know a single intelligence expert in the world that could have said this could all go down in 11 days. I heard 90 days Kabul could fall, and I scoffed. I scoffed at the idea. Like, okay, yeah, that's the worst case scenario, sure, but that's not most likely what's going to happen. And that was later. Before, it was like it might collapse in 6 months fastest. Then it was 90 days. Then it happened in 11. And for that type of intelligence failure to not even just be like, just most foreign policy experts and analysts I know, none of them actually, not even most, none of them predicted something like this. So I can't really blame somebody for just not having the information that no one had.
Right.
Then that would be something you could maybe point at the intelligence community differently and say that apparently they didn't have enough information or they overestimated certain stuff, which that would apply to basically every intelligence analyst in the world. I don't think anyone would have predicted this. So my main criticism of Biden is going to be the fact that he did not fast track these refugees, and it seems like now he's bragging about the 2,000, which is so off to me considering how many more we need to take in.
Right.
It's so weird. It'd be like if there's like a burning building of like 10,000 people and you're like, guys, we saved 10. Like, okay,
pat on the back over here.
yeah, congrats. Like, you now, and you're gonna save the rest. Yeah, we're working on it. Like, I'm not gonna stand here and applaud you for that.
Right.
And all the criticism I made earlier about stuff that should have been done differently, like the grounded deals or the Air Force, like all of that stands. He had 7 months. He had 7 months to do that.
Yeah, it sounds like it was kind of like an inevitable thing that was going to happen. You definitely have a really deep understanding. I'm very impressed. I know maybe that sounds rude to say that, but I don't really have too much to like ask as a follow up because I'm just like, for me, foreign affairs is something that I'm so much of a noob with. Just I don't know. I feel like that was some really, really good information. I do have another question, maybe a little bit of a wrap up question here. What's the deal with everything going down with Mike from PA?
Okay. So what happened is I posted something that says the fall of Kabul will be much worse than the fall of Saigon. And the reason why is because the Viet Cong and the North Vietnamese army did not want to marry off 15-year-old little girls and reverse women's rights. You could talk about like similar human rights abuses when it comes to things like maybe torture, but they're not to the same extent when it comes to things like women's rights and other stuff. And the Taliban has a marked history of brutality that I think is distinct. That is distinct from a lot of other organizations in the world and other organizations that we've fought in the past. So I believe it would be much, much, much worse. That's basically the tweet I made, and he said no. And we went back and forth, and he just kept making so many historical errors after so many historical errors, just accepting nothing. And he basically refused to say for almost like 3 days that the Taliban was bad. And then when he finally did say the Taliban was bad, 10 minutes later, he said that the Afghan government, the ANA, was the most evil force in Afghanistan. Now, I don't know where you would list the most evil organizations in Afghanistan, and I know the ANA has a lot of problems with corruption and the bachis and all these other things, but saying that says something about the Taliban, doesn't it? Because it should be obvious to anyone, it's the Taliban, or for your really hardcore foreign policy experts, ISIS in Afghanistan. But it is the Taliban, and anybody with 2 brain cells should have been able to say that. So that made me rethink whether he really cares that much about the condition of Afghan women, and he basically dismissed all concerns. They brought that up with basically like, that's like mainstream media, CIA talking points. And then he criticized me for...
Did he actually, wait, did he actually say it was CIA, or are you being hyperbolic?
Well, he actually did say that I was using a CIA front organization. And the proof he used is that this organization used to have CIA ties. And then he basically clicked their financial documents and scrolled through it and said, that's interesting. It didn't even like show. He said, that's a lot of money. Where'd they get that from? And then it was done. I was like, okay, buddy. And then after that, he cited the CIA, incorrectly, mind you, to counter me. He said, we didn't help Afghan women at all in Afghanistan, which I don't think we did enough, but the rights of Afghan women most certainly have improved in Afghanistan since the invasion. But he cited a CIA information in response to me, which, number one, is hypocritical. But number two, he cited statistics from the year 2000. Now, I don't know what you know about 9/11 and the war in Afghanistan, but 9/11 happened September 11th, 2001. We didn't invade Afghanistan in the year 2000. Those statistics were from before our invasion. So you can't use those statistics to show that, to comment about the literacy rates of Afghan women. I can actually send you one of the clips if you want to see it of him messing up.
Oh my god. Did he not realize it, or did he
did not realize it, and he's not. I don't think he's commented on it since then.
I don't think he's going to.
Here's a short I made about it. I'll send it to you. Actually, I can just share screens if you want.
Okay, yeah, go for it. I already have you up on my Discord thing here.
Okay, 1 second.
You can go ahead and play it for the stream.
Okay, 1 second. Tell me when you're watching, and I'll start it.
All right, I can see it. I'm good.
Okay.
And he tried to argue back and forth about how the international forces were popular. He cited a CIA front organization, a survey they did.
Can you restart it?
You're citing a...
Sorry, it was too quiet for it.
I'll start it.
And he tried to argue back and forth about how the international forces were popular. He cited a CIA front organization, a survey they did. You're citing a literal CIA front org? My lord, even Samantha Power would blush. Holy shit, the stupidity of people is incredible.
It is, Mike.
Absolutely incredible. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh my god.
Yeah, it was pretty blatant. I don't know why he thought he was going to get away with that. I think he just didn't read his own stuff, and he just assumed... because he was criticizing me for not reading stuff, even like he criticized me for not reading Afghanistan papers, even though I covered them like exactly when they dropped on December 6th of 2019, right? But then he doesn't even read the own articles he's using on stream, because if he did, he wouldn't have cited the CIA, number one, because he was criticizing me for doing that, and number two, he wouldn't be using sources from the year 2000 from before we invaded. And even now, apparently he tried to, like, now he's like, well, now it's 20 to 25%, and he's still wrong. He's still wrong. He still doesn't know the actual number.
I'm telling you, my new strategy now, and it's insane. Anytime Mike from PA says anything, I just believe the opposite, and I've been consistently correct.
Yeah, that seems to be the case. There's another instance where he said 90% of our airstrikes kill civilians, which even 90% of Taliban attacks don't kill civilians. The problem is with that analysis is what he's talking about is an Intercept article. And I know the exact Intercept article he's talking about because I've read it a fucking million times because people say this all the time. That's about one military operation over over like a 3 or 4 month period. That's not over all U.S. drone strikes, which he was trying to imply. And the problem is not that even I disagreed with his conclusion. Most of his conclusion I agreed with. It was that he made the argument so terribly and he sourced it so bad and was so dishonest and didn't want to care about the actual concerns of Afghan women that he just comes off so terribly and dishonest. I really, I don't know, man. I don't know what's up.
Well, I'm sorry you had to put up with his bullshit. But hey, man, thanks so much for coming on and explaining things. This was really informative.
No problem, buddy. You have a good one, okay?
You too. See ya.
Bye.